Alrighty.
I
So
wanted to answer you back on that.
what's that? Oh yeah, like call and response.
Call and response. That's it.
So
Uh,
all right. So in this one, we're going to talk about reality checks, and so it's we're already like what 7 weeks into the program, and we're now
yeah.
just starting to talk about reality. This is usually one of the first things that we talk about when
In the books, they do it on page 3. Come on, Dustin.
we're way behind, man.
Oh, God. Anyway. All right. So, reality checks are just another way to identify which place you're in, because after when you're there, when you're in a regular dream, I mean, it seems pretty real. And even when you become lucid, um, you know in the dream, it's still like you want to check it out, right? You want to check out that you're actually in a lucid dream, right? So you may feel like you're waking up, everything becomes sharp and clear, and it's all good. Um, but you want to do a reality check, right? So obviously the physics that are in your waking day are not the same as they are in the dreamscape, right? So uh, and there are a ton of them, and you'll make up your own too. And usually those are the best, but we'll give you some suggestions. Um, so it's a way to take advantage of let's say, the fluidity of that dreamscape, right? Your subconscious mind. So one of the first things that I do is want to know what the reality of an action is here, right? In this, you want to be really clear about that. Like, let's take something really common, like we've all glanced at the sun, or we've been driving and the sun, we turn a corner and the sun's right in our eyes, we don't have our sunglasses on, and it's glaring, right? It's like you're squinting, and it's not pleasant to have that right there. And so but in the dream, right, in your subconscious, the sun doesn't have that effect, right? So that makes it, a really great way to check your reality, to see that if you're in a dream. So during the day, if you have a nice sunny day, or you live someplace where it's sunny all the time, which would really be great, you basically, you sort of ask yourself, am I dreaming? And then you look toward the sun. If you're automatically doing that, squinting and looking away, then you're awake and you're in this, your waking day, your physical reality, right? So um, if you happen to do that, if you say, am I dreaming? And you look at the sun, and it doesn't affect your eyes at all, and you're just wide open eyes and looking at it, and all of a sudden you just notice it's sort of like a gold disc in the sky, or a yellow piece of paper in front of you, or whatever it would be, whatever it turns into, something that's non-harmful to your eyes, then you're going to know, boom, that's the trigger, right? You're actually in a dream. So there's no way to confuse those two things, right? So that's a nice, easy one to look for. What's another one that we could use? There's the sun. I was thinking about. Oh, you brought up the one with people. Like, how do you do a reality check, right? When that's the sun is nice for outside, but let's say you're in your office and you want to do these reality checks through the day, right? I mean, there are, you're going to combine it with some other techniques to sort of give you the idea to do it, right? Because we're training our memory to do that, regularly, setting the new pattern. The more I check it here in my waking reality, the more I'm going to carry that pattern into the dream. I'm going to start checking my reality in the dream. It's another trigger, right?
It's
So
interesting. I was reading a lucid dreaming book the last couple of days, and they were saying that you're in a state. If you look at a 24-hour period, you're actually in a REM cycle of your sleep, or you're dreaming. You're 11% of the time that you're alive. So
right.
so if you're, and it made me think, because when I've done reality checks in the past, people always say, like, to do it often, And to me, I was like, well, like what is often,
What's
like
often?
three,
Right.
4 times a day, something like that. But it's funny because if you do the math, it's like you have to do it at least 10 times a day to get into that range where you're creating a very high likelihood that during that 1/10 of your experiential time of having experience or dreaming or waking or whatever, that you're actually going to start to initiate that habit appearing in your dreams.
Right.
So, and that was one of the things I wanted to touch on too, is like how often should we be doing these reality checks, and then I started to think like, man, if I need to do it like 10 times a day to start to capitalize on actually having an effect, like,
Right.
even for me, like like you talk to people during the day and you're
Right.
interacting, you're doing things. So how do you do it so nonchalantly that it's not like, hold on a second, I have to
Yeah.
wait
Yeah. I got to
if I can
excuse
fly,
myself.
or like, hold on, I
Right.
just got to try to put my hand through
Just
this wall. I'll
right. Right. Right.
be right back
Right.
with you in a second.
Oh, geez, look, that light does go on and off. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, by the way, did you know that it's exactly 1 minute from the last time that I did this?
Yes.
The
People
clock
need to
has
take care
not changed at all. I must be here.
yeah.
People are going to start running away from you as soon as they see you. So that's the thing. So you have to have some things that you can do that are very nonchalant, that are, at the time. I mean, you can even do them in your head, right? So you brought up the one about like, what do you do when you have people and you're talking to them, and it's you just feel like it's time. Like they say something, or something makes you kind of go, that was unusual, or that was strange, or wow, that was really interesting, or an amazing story or whatever. I want to do a reality check at that point, right? So one of the things that I do, because I started thinking about these things, like, um, how do I do it that's nonchalant, and how do I capitalize on things that I've heard all my life from multiple sources, right? Because if I can do those things, first of all, it's already in my head. I don't have to think about it that much. It comes right back to me. So one of the things that many people have heard, even if they haven't taken a public speaking course, right, is, how do you get away from the nerves, right? It's like, well, imagine your audience is sitting there in their underwear, and so, that doesn't work so well in physical reality, but in the dream, if you're doing a reality check and you're talking to somebody, and you say, oh, I'm just thinking this person is in their underwear. Well, it could just instantly happen, but most of the time, for me anyway, what happens is people just start taking their clothes off. They're still holding the conversation with me, but they're just taking their clothes off, as if it's just no thing. It's just, they're just doing it, right? So, and that works. And then I usually know, like, wow, this is either a really good day, or, I'm dreaming. So usually I'm dreaming. Okay. So it's like, okay, so that's something that's nonchalant that you can check all day long. And I usually wait to have, something trigger me to do a reality check, right? So it's like something that I see that's unusual, or really beautiful, or really ugly, or, anything that's outside of the norm, which means I have to be sort of on alert all day, right? I have to be very observational. I'm looking around, and what are those things that really catch my eye, right? It could just be the sharpness of a letter that you see on a book, or a certain word, or really anything that's just not the normal for you. Anything that would trigger you into thinking that I should do a reality check to see if I'm dreaming, because it's very, um, false waking is a really, that's a big phenomena. It happens a lot, where people think they've woken up and they're walking around their house like, oh boy, it's like, that was a great dream, I'm going to write that down. And then all of a sudden their pencil melts in their hand or whatever. Well, they never got out of the dream. They just sort of transitioned into waking up in their bed, and and then walking around as if as if it's just part of the waking reality. That's how real it is. You
Yeah.
don't often know. And that's why we have to do these things to sort of help us cement that in and really check it out, right? It's so incredibly realistic that, you might go through a whole day and think it's the normal thing. And, then all of a sudden you wake up again in your bed, which is kind of shocking. That's definitely a shocking event. I've had that happen a few times. And it's really trained me to do these reality checks on a regular basis. It was more that than somebody saying, "Oh, you'd have a better chance if you did more of these reality checks." It was more like those false wakings happened a few times, and I was like, "Oh man, I do not want to be in that scenario again."
So you were having a dream or even a lucid dream, and
I
then
was having a lucid dream, and then I
you
felt like
woke
I
up.
woke up spontaneously,
Yeah.
and I was like in my bed. And then so I got up the way I normally did, thinking, "Oh, I'm just going to record this dream." And I'm walking around. I go to the bathroom. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm turning on the teapot. It's like all the normal routines of the day, starting the day. And
How long have those gone on? How long can a false awakening where you wake up but you think
your
it's,
subjective time.
oh yeah, I mean, well, yeah, like
I mean, for me, that one lasted about an hour and a half.
yeah,
Where
you're
it
like
was like
getting
I
up, doing your normal day stuff,
my
your
normal
morning
routine for
routine.
getting up and going, and that's it. And and just sort of, I mean, I don't tend to look at the clock when I get up in the morning.
Right.
So it's kind of like it's not something where I'm checking those linear measurements, right? I mean, I'm just drinking my coffee and doing this, doing that, writing out my dreams at the time. That was a while ago, so I didn't have a recording device to do it. I'm writing them out, and then all of a sudden, I forget actually what woke me up to it. Something didn't work, and I thought, oh, that's so weird. Why, I must have locked the door, or that kind of thing. I'm turning the handle and the handle's not, and then the handle breaks off in my hand. I was like, what the hell? How could that be? And it's like, and I look at the door handle in my hand, and it just sort of like it turns into sand and melts through my hand, and I was like, and before I could even say, holy, I'm dreaming, I like woke up in bed again, and I was like, oh my God. It's like, because all I could envision myself was, going through a normal day, going through a normal business day. And, like going through a whole, I mean, I don't know why that was so panicking to me, but, just the idea of like, my God, I could have gone through like literally a whole work day in a lucid dream and not even realize I was in a lucid dream.
Mm.
It was that real. So it's like, wow, it was freaky, So I was like, and I've had a couple of others like that since then. So I tend to do a reality check as soon as I wake up in bed these days.
Mm.
And I have for a long time, just to make sure. It's a good practice to get into. Anywho.
So the other one that you mentioned too that we were going to say was that one where you're giving yourself the command to float.
Right. So that's another one you can do in the presence of people, right? You don't have to, because some people will say jump up and down, see if you can fly, that kind of thing. But, you only got to jump up and down in your cubicle a couple times and, people will start running away, right? So it's like you don't want to do that. So, I just give myself remember that in your subconscious, what you think about, what you hold firmly in mind is what happens. So, when I do that, so I just tell myself, I give myself the command to float, and it just sort of pulls my feet off the ground, maybe a few inches. That's all. It's not like a flying thing, or I don't need a running jump to do that, right? It's just, I just tell myself float, and I come up a few inches, and that's the end. So if that happens, obviously I know I'm in a dream, or I've gotten really, really, really good at energy work. Right? So either way, it works out for me. So
That will be a whole different stage of the
it'll be
program.
a whole different program too. Let me tell you. So, but that's the idea. So you want to have a couple of those things, and some of the tried and true ones over the years that, that you'll read about if you read these books or hear about them, is like things tend to change when you look away from them. So like if you can find a clock, if you look at it and look at the time, and then, turn away and ask yourself, am I dreaming? And then you look back at the clock. Usually if you're in a dream, the time will have changed, right? So maybe it says, 11:11. And then you look away and you look back, it'll say, 1:32. So it's like it changes. It's not like 1:12 where you can't figure it out, right? So, or sometimes words on a page or words in a book will change, right? You can read it and say, like, just say like if you have a book with a big, with a, large title in the front. So I'll look at that. I'll find one in the room that I'm in or wherever I am. I'll look at that and I'll turn away and I'll say, am I dreaming? And then I'll look back at that and it'll be a different word. So, than what the title was before. So those are sort of those tried and true things that you hear people talk about all the time. I have known people that doesn't work for as much. So, I don't want to plant that seed in your head, but just know don't be frustrated if it doesn't. Sometimes people just have, a steel trap mind where, when they look away and they say, am I dreaming? And they just turn back and it holds it in place. It's not very often, but it can happen. So you don't want to be, tricked that way. So, some of these other things work a little bit better.
Another thing that I was reading about recently too, and to that point, was that many of the lucid dream techniques are incredibly subjective. Like the one that you were just talking about, in this particular book, the author was saying that for him, words are very stable. So when he looks at a book in a lucid dream and looks away and looks back, it's the same. So that's not, a technique for him, but it is for many, many other people. So, and also that idea of like what you believe will happens in a lucid dream, or what your expectations are, right? So when you do that reality check with giving yourself the command to float or something, it's not just like saying float really quickly in your head. It's like you want to do it, but also try to anticipate that will happen, right?
Yeah, you want to, that's why I said, I give myself the command to float. It's not like I give myself the idea to float. It's like, no, it's like I want to make it, pretty demanding. It's because in a lucid dream, that's all you'd have to do. You expect to be able to float. So, if I say float, I'm saying it with that understanding that in a lucid dream, I do float. So it's sort of like, boom, it's something I've done. It's sort of like saying, if you were checking it out here, you'd say, can you need to pick up your phone, you pick up your phone, right? It's not like you would be surprised if you went to pick it up and it was so heavy you couldn't pick it up, or it was glued to the table, you'd be in shock, right? So it's sort of that value that we're looking for, to sort of give us an idea, where we are in the scenario, because it's so real that it'd be very difficult. You could go through a whole lucid dream and not realize that you're dreaming. And that's the whole thing. And so you really want to check it out so that you have a really, you have a good understanding of where you are and what's going on at any given moment. So that's all, and those are some of the better ways to do it, I think. So, yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So in the next segment of the program, we're going to talk about perspective memory, which we're going to combine with this idea of reality checks. But I did want to chunk it down and separate these dialogues a little bit so they're nice and clean, and we can train each piece at a time. So
Perfect.
Get on to the next.
All right.